All right, we're back in the studio, Green Spring, and today we have Bill Weise on. I'm sure you've seen him around the campus. He's the man with a ready smile who sings in the choristers, is proud of his hat and doesn't want to lose it, and who gave us an outstanding presentation on the major battle his unit fought in Vietnam. Today, on Who's Who, maybe we'll learn a little bit more about Bill. And the hat goes back to the choristers show that we did about 5 years ago, I think, something like that. First time I remember Bill in the choristers, and he lost his hat and found it again. But anyway, how long have you been at Green Spring, Bill?
A little over 6 years, Gray.
So you came in 2009?
Yes.
About the same time I did.
Right.
Yeah.
I remember you're the fellow with the, I'm going to say, not a banjo, you're with guitar, right?
I got a guitar, that's
right.
Yeah,
a guitar.
So well, what brought you here?
Pardon me? Well, I decided, I was living by myself in a large house and taking care of it. And I do a fair amount of traveling, and I had to take care of the house and so forth and so on. My wife had passed on about 17 years ago. So I decided I would select the place that I would spend my remaining years in and not have my children do it when I became incapacitated due to health reasons or whatever. And so I looked around, and it was pretty obvious to me that Green Springs was the best in this area by far. And I was on the priority list for several years before I actually made the decision, and it's one of the best decisions I ever made.
Well, I assume you have family around here.
Actually, I have quite a large family, but around here I only have a grandson, his wife, and a 2.5-year-old great-granddaughter.
I thought I'd seen some of your grandchildren or great-grandchildren in the chorister audience.
Well, what you've seen were neighbors of mine.
Okay.
Two little redheaded girls.
That's right, I remember that.
I kind of adopt children wherever I go.
Okay.
And they call me Pop, and I get to see them, spend Christmas with them, and that sort of thing. They're like my grandchildren.
Yeah. My great grandkids call me Big Pop. They call their grandpa Pop, so I'm Big Pop. I guess that comes from being great, huh?
I guess so. You know,
Well, what about your early boyhood? You grew up in Philadelphia, as I remember.
Yeah, I grew up in what we would call today a blue-collar family. My father at the time was a coppersmith. He had spent 9 years in the Army, including a tour during World War I. He was an infantryman, served in 5 major engagements, was badly wounded, gassed, and when he got out of the Army, when he got out of the Army when he got married, and raised our family in Philadelphia. There were 4 children in my family. I have an older brother, an older sister, and a younger brother. And we grew up mainly during the Depression, and my older brother served in the Navy in World War II, and that's typical in our family. We whenever the country's in a war, we seem to get involved.
That's good. So anything special about high school? You probably went to high school during the war, is that?
Yeah, as a matter of fact, I attended Ben Franklin High School there, and I attribute whatever success I have in life, if I've had any, to 3 outstanding teachers that I still remember, and unfortunately they're no longer with us. Mr. Rosenberg, Dr. Gordon, and Mr. Weise, who at a time when I was kind of a rambunctious youngster, I was working after school and making a little bit of money during work, and but they helped me keep my nose to the grindstone, and as a result of their leadership, I guess is the best way to call it, I was able to earn an academic scholarship to Temple University.
Oh, okay, great.
Where I studied, I switched my major several times, but I wound up as a major in political science because I decided that the best thing for me to do at that time was be a lawyer.
Oh, I see.
But that didn't work out.
Yeah.
Plans go awry.
So you took pre-law then at Temple?
Yeah, it was a pre-law course with a major in political science.
Yeah. Well, did you go into ROTC at that time?
No, I didn't, because I had no intention of serving in the armed forces.
Okay, well, I guess
Remember,
not.
when I entered college, we in 1947 we were not at war,
Yeah.
and we had an ROTC and still do at Temple. But I was interested in becoming a Philadelphia lawyer and entering politics, and
There's
being
a good
savior,
song.
being a savior to the nation, and
There's a good song about Philadelphia lawyers. But Woody Guthrie, I'll have to do it sometime.
yeah, I know. I know that, and I know what.
Know what happened to him? Well, you went into the Marine Corps. How did that? Were you drafted?
Well, you see, I intended to go to law school, and of course, when the war broke out during my last year of school, so I finished college, and I decided that rather than go to law school right then, I had a student deferment for draft, and I could have continued it all the way through law school. I decided that it would be best to take my 2 years, and I expected to be in the Army, the draftee, for 2 years, and then after I served my obligation to my country, I would go to law school, take my bar exam, and then start my career, and wind up as whatever.
You'd have the GI Bill too, probably.
I'd have the GI Bill, so that was all a consideration, and there wouldn't be a 2-year delay between the time I finished law school and the time I took my bar exam. So it made sense to serve in between graduating from Temple and law school.
So you joined up instead of so you joined the Marines.
Well, what happened, I reported in, I told the draft board that in other words, I turned in my student deferment, and shortly afterwards I was inducted. I had to report to, along with about 400 or 500 others, and you may remember the old National Guard armories they had. They built after the Civil War. This one in Philadelphia, Broad Street and Federal, was large enough for, you could play 10 basketball games in there at the same time if you wanted to. We were all waiting for transportation to take us to Fort Meade, where we'd be given uniforms and sent to the various other bases for basic training. And all of a sudden we heard this loud voice. "All right, you clowns, knock it off," good and loud, and boy, it was you know what command presence is? Well, that was a command, and boy, you could hear a pin drop.
That's right.
And we all turned to the direction of that noise, and it was a Marine gunnery sergeant, resplendent in breast blues, and he had ribbons that seemed from up here down to his waistline.
We've lost your. Just hold it.
And he had ribbons down to his waistline, and he said, "I need 25 volunteers for the Marine Corps."
Hold that closer.
Silence. Couldn't hear a sound. And I don't know why. I have a number of reasons I give, but I stepped forward and put my hand up. I was the only one. And he said, "I need 25. And then finally 10 other guys said, and he picked out 15 more. And
so they volunteered too.
Yeah, then so we loaded on a bus, sworn in, got on a train down to Paris Island, and 9 weeks later, I was a Marine.
I wondered why you were at Fort Meade, because that's where I was inducted into the Army in '46. So.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Well, they were going to send us to Fort Meade. That was a processing center.
Absolutely. Yeah.
From the Philadelphia area. I think they
also
sent them
Southwest
there.
Virginia.
Yeah, and they gave them all the aptitude test and the physical to see what they were best qualified for, and that sort of thing.
Well, after your boot camp, you went to Korea pretty soon after that, didn't you?
Fairly soon, but the Marine Corps initially wanted to make me an electronics technician, which I didn't want to be. I was
You
still
did want it.
didn't electronics.
Yeah, you wanted to be that or not to be.
No, I didn't want to be that.
Okay.
It's because the test I took, I scored high on whatever aptitude you had to have for electronics, and I wound up at Class A school at Great Lakes, Navy Electronics School. But I didn't want to be there, and I kept requesting transfer out. I wanted I guess I was patriotic. I wanted to serve my 2 years. I did want to go and do my part of the fighting for my country and so forth. Finally, the first sergeant, a World War II veteran, called me and told me I was stupid, but he found it out for me. There was the Marine Corps was looking for officers, and they had what they called a screening course, and if you applied, and I met the requirements, physical and mental requirements, and was selected. It was a 9-week course where they, if you were successful, it was not exactly the same as officer candidate school, but similar. They didn't try to teach us anything. What they tried to do was make us quit.
Oh.
Because their rationale was, hey, you guys meet the physical, mental, and all those other standards.
Yeah.
Now, all we want to see if you are motivated to be an officer of Marines. And believe me, when I say they harassed us, they really harassed us. They'd wake us up at 2 in the morning and run us 5 miles, give us half hour to get ready and fall out for inspection in a different uniform and all sorts of things like that. And the fact is, we could quit any time we wanted without any bad mark on our record. So you could quit, just tell whoever was in charge of the instruction at that point, Candidate Weise or Candidate Smith, I desire to quit the course, and you were gone. And so those that hung in there, believe me, were selected.
Good. Well, now you became a second lieutenant.
Right.
And Korea must have been shortly thereafter.
Shortly thereafter, right.
Where did you serve in Korea?
I served in Korea towards the end of the war in 1953.
Oh, okay.
And when I got over there, the war had been stabilized in lines on both sides along and across the 38th parallel. Had been that way for more than a year. And most of our fighting was done on outposts between the enemy main line of resistance and the friendly main line of resistance. And I served when I was in Korea as a 60 mortar section leader, rifle platoon commander, and finally an executive officer of a rifle company, George Company, 3rd Battalion, 5th Marines.
Well, that must have served you pretty well because you decided to stay in the Marines, huh?
It was there that I was offered a regular commission.
Okay.
And they called me up back to battalion one day, and I didn't know what it was for. I'd been up all night. And because of my standing that I made in the officer basics, and because of my standing in the officer basic school, I was offered a regular commission. And by that time, I had been leading Marines for a while, and I really liked it.
You got into that one.
It was what
we got
I
a
wanted.
real Marine here.
So I, and of course I was single. I was, and it couldn't have been better at that time. So I accepted it, and by golly, 31 years later,
you retired.
Yeah, I retired.
Well, you got married right after Korea, didn't you?
Yes, I did.
How did you meet your wife?
Well, actually, I knew my wife just about all her life. We went to the same church. She was 3 years younger than me. Ethel, I keep...
Well, we're going to change microphones here. These new mics, I guess, are not all that all that good. At least they don't stay on very well.
I guess I speak too loud or too fast. Or
I don't think so. Let's attribute it to the mics, Bill.
This is my wife here.
Can we home in on that?
That's.
We just had the picture of the family up on the screen too. There we go. Okay.
Yeah, that's my wife Ethel. The day we were married, I had known her actually all her life. She's 3 years younger than me, but I'd seen her in church. But you know, when you're growing up, a girl 3 years younger than you, they're cute little kids.
They are. That's right.
You don't think of them as you don't feel very serious romantic interest in them anyhow. But when I came back from Korea, she was all grown up, and as you can see, she was a very attractive gal.
It made a big difference.
And it made a big difference.
Yeah.
And 6 months after I returned, we got married.
Well, was she able to accompany you overseas on any assignments?
Unfortunately, no. All
Yeah.
my overseas were unaccompanied tours.
That was true for most Marines, wasn't it?
That's true,
yeah,
yes.
Yeah.
And most of our overseas tours were in the Far East, either Korea, Vietnam, or Okinawa, that sort of thing.
Yeah. Well, and I believe you probably served in Okinawa.
I did. I did 3 unaccompanied tours in Okinawa.
Oh, you did? Oh,
Yes.
That's a lot. Yeah. Well, we're down to 10 minutes, Bill. It's amazing how time flies. You were in some Army schools. You were an instructor and also a student at the Army Staff College.
The Army Command and General Staff College in Fort Leavenworth, yes. I really enjoyed serving with the Army. I also went through the Army Jump School, the Army Ranger School, and ABC School, Atomic, Biological, Chemical Schools. I went through a lot of
Did you go that? Okay.
Oh, yes, yes. I went through, we have a lot of Marines going to Army schools and other schools. And I also went to went to the Army Special Warfare Officer School back in 1961.
I thought that was the Army Special Warfare that you were.
Yes.
When did you go to Staff College?
I went to in 1965, 66, I attended the Army Command and Staff College.
Did you instruct after that, immediately after?
No, after that, I did an unaccompanied tour. I did 2 unaccompanied tours in a row. I went back to Korea for a year as an advisor to the Korean Marine Corps. I was a major at that time. And then I volunteered, thinking the war would end before I got a chance to fight in it. I volunteered to go to Vietnam, and I went to Vietnam immediately following that, where I was fortunate enough to get command of a Marine battalion, the 2nd Battalion, 4th Marines.
Let's talk about just a minute on the 2nd Battalion of the 4th Marines. What do we mean by that?
Well, 2-4 is shorthand.
Yeah.
The Marines, the 4th Marines, really is the 4th Marine Regiment.
Okay.
So
it's part of a division.
Yeah, a regiment is part of a division.
And how many divisions do we have?
The Marine Corps has a total of 4 divisions and 4 Marine aircraft wings. 1 is in reserve. So we have 3 active duty divisions and 3 active duty aircraft wings.
And so you have this 1st, 2nd, 3rd, 4th divisions. Then we have the regiments, 3 regiments in a division. Then we have 3 battalions in a regiment. Is that
that's correct.
Yeah,
and the infantry. And of course, we also have artillery regiments.
Yeah.
And we have tank battalions, and we have amphibia. We have a lot of other types of combat units beside infantry. And of course, we have our own air wing with all different types of aircraft in it.
Well, you went to Vietnam, and you gave us a great presentation on the Battle of Dong Ha, was it?
Dido.
Dido.
Which was part of a larger battle, the Battle of Dong Ha.
Okay. And so, is there something special about that you would like to?
Yeah, the Battle of Dido was a bloody battle. It lasted 3 days, and during that time, I had a foxhole strength in my battalion of a little over 600, and 81 of those Marines were killed. 287 were medically evacuated. So we had a tremendous casualty rate. But what we did, and we did an unplanned but highly successful, we prevented a large enemy organization, the 320th North Vietnamese Army Division, from attacking and destroying Dong Ha Combat Base.
And that's about 15,000.
Well, no, it depends. Their divisions aren't as large as ours. They vary from about 8,000 to about 10,000.
Yeah, and you had about 1,000.
Well, I had under 1,000.
Under 1,000.
Yeah, and we fought for 3 days. It was an unplanned. What we did, it was a spoiling attack, and a spoiling attack, as you know, is where you prevent the enemy from doing what he intended to do. He was planning to attack. He was in the process of attack, and we stopped him, and we pushed him back, and we took terrible casualties, but not nearly as bad as the enemy took.
Well, here's a book that Bill wrote about that battle. Well, I guess it's more than just the battle, but this is a book, One Magnificent Bastard, so, by Bill Weise. And we also have a picture here of Bill and his sergeant major in that battle. Can you get that? It doesn't show up very well. Let's see if I can change the angle a little bit.
That is Sergeant Major John Malnar, and one of the finest Marines I ever served with. He served in 3 wars, highly decorated. He was killed at the Battle of Dido about the same time that I was wounded.
Oh.
And I wanted to tell you that One Magnificent Bastard, the Magnificent Bastard is the name of the 2nd Battalion, 4th Marines. That's what we are called.
Okay.
So when they say One Magnificent Bastard, that doesn't make me any more a magnificent bastard than anybody else. I'm just one of many.
All right. Well, we're running out of time. You retired in 1982. Did you work for any research and analysis firms around the?
I did work for several Beltway bandit outfits, wrote field manuals, analyzed training programs, and generally offered advice, whether wanted or unwanted.
And I note that you co-chaired the Marine Corps Heritage Center. What's the Marine Corps Heritage Center?
Well, we were a committee. The Heritage Center encompasses the Marine Corps Museum, and we were. I was part of a small group that came up with the idea and the initial funding for the Marine Corps Museum that exists down at Quantico today.
Oh, that's a beautiful museum, and I hope if you haven't seen it in Green Spring, if you haven't been down there, I know that they run special trips occasionally, and it's a wonderful museum. I remember the old one at Quantico, and then when they built a new one, I was impressed. I've been down there, probably 3 or 4 times. My grandsons really enjoyed it too. Well, Bill, we're running out of time. I'm sorry, but I hope you all have enjoyed meeting Bill, and when you see him in the hallways, make sure you give him a good hello.